It was a scorching summer night in Las Vegas, the kind of heat that made the neon lights glow even brighter and the Strip feel alive with endless energy. Jessica, Maria, and Lauren, 3 flight attendants in their mid-20s, had just finished a grueling cross-country flight. They checked into one of the city's most popular hotels, laughing and teasing each other about who had slept the least on the plane. They were tired but excited, ready to soak in the city's nightlife, unaware that this night would change everything forever. The trio spent the evening exploring the hotel's bars and casino floors, taking pictures in front of the iconic fountains and snapping selfies in the lobby. Casino staff and other guests later recalled seeing them together, cheerful and energetic, joking about hitting the jackpot. But as the night wore on, something felt off to a few observant employees, a sense that the 3 women were being watched. Subtle glances from the shadows, an occasional figure disappearing around corners, details that seemed insignificant at the time, but would later haunt investigators. By early morning, the hotel's security cameras recorded their last known movements. Jessica, Maria, and Lauren had returned to their room on the 14th floor, chatting and laughing about their plans for the next day. But shortly after, they vanished. The room was left untouched, their belongings neatly arranged, and the door locked from the inside. Staff assumed they had left for a spontaneous outing, yet there were no charges on their room, no messages left for friends, and no calls made on the hotel phones. It was as if the 3 had simply evaporated into thin air. Word of their disappearance spread quickly. Friends and family tried calling the hotel and the airline, only to be met with silence or confusion. Rumors began to swirl immediately. Some said it was a case of foul play, others whispered about accidental encounters with dangerous people in the city. Local news picked up the story, and soon the entire Strip was buzzing with speculation. Authorities launched a search, but the trail had already gone cold before it even began. What made the disappearance even more chilling was the lack of evidence. No CCTV footage showed them leaving the hotel, no eyewitnesses could recall seeing them check out, and there were no unusual events logged that night. For investigators, this was more than a missing persons case. It was a puzzle that defied explanation. The initial hours and days became crucial, but even with every available resource, the 3 women seemed to have vanished into the very heart of Las Vegas, leaving only fear and unanswered questions behind. The morning after the disappearance, the hotel staff realized something was seriously wrong. The room of Jessica, Maria, and Lauren was untouched, their luggage still neatly arranged, untouched snacks on the nightstand, and the hotel phone unanswered. Panic rippled through the management as they contacted the police. When authorities arrived, they were met with a chilling scene. 3 young women had seemingly vanished without a trace, and no immediate evidence pointed to where they had gone. Police immediately launched a full-scale investigation. Detectives scoured the hotel for hours, reviewing security footage, interviewing staff, and checking entry and exit points. They spoke to every guest on the floor that night, every security guard on duty, and even the hotel's janitorial staff. But each lead turned into a dead end. The cameras captured them entering the building, entering the elevator, and finally stepping into their room. But after that, the footage ended abruptly. It was as though the women had been erased from existence. The investigation expanded beyond the hotel. Authorities traced their steps back through the airport and the flight they had worked earlier that day. Airline records confirmed that they had completed their duties without incident. Friends and co-workers were questioned about recent behavior, possible enemies, or personal troubles. Yet nothing stood out. There were no arguments, no threats, no strange interactions, nothing to suggest a motive or hint at foul play. Every possibility seemed plausible but ultimately led nowhere. As days passed, pressure on the authorities intensified. The media caught wind of the mysterious case, amplifying the public's fascination and fear. Rumors began to spread like wildfire. Some suggested the women had been kidnapped, others claimed they might have run off for a secret rendezvous. Tabloid stories fed the mystery, presenting conflicting theories that only added to the confusion. Friends and family were desperate for answers, organizing search parties and posting flyers, but every avenue seemed to collapse under the weight of uncertainty. Perhaps the most unnerving aspect of the investigation was the eerie calm of the hotel itself. Staff reported feeling an unshakable tension, claiming that hallways seemed quieter than usual and that lights flickered in places where no one was present. Detectives even noted odd inconsistencies in the hotel's records. Doors showing as locked when they should have been open, maintenance logs that didn't add up, and whispers from longtime employees about strange noises in unused rooms. It was as though the building itself held secrets it wasn't ready to reveal. Weeks after the disappearance, the investigation began turning up peculiar details, clues that seemed both tantalizing and terrifying, yet never led to solid answers. Housekeeping staff reported hearing strange noises late at night, whispers echoing through empty hallways, footsteps on floors that should have been deserted, and the faint rustle of fabric in storage closets. Some described fleeting shadows moving just beyond their line of sight. While most brushed it off as imagination or the hotel's usual chaos, the investigators couldn't ignore these reports entirely. One of the first promising leads came from a security guard who worked the night shift. He swore he had seen the three women in the service corridors, long, narrow passageways that staff rarely used. But when he tried to follow, the hallway seemed to stretch impossibly, doors appeared where none should exist, and by the time he caught up, they were gone. He insisted it wasn't a dream or fatigue, but when detectives reviewed his statements, there was no CCTV footage to back it up. It was a ghostly hint that only deepened the mystery. Neighbors staying in adjacent rooms also reported odd happenings. Lights flickered at strange intervals, and in some cases, guests claimed to hear muffled cries or whispers emanating from the women's room after they had vanished. Several even reported seeing fleeting figures at their windows, silhouetted by the neon glow of the strip. Investigators followed up on each report meticulously, but every trace proved ephemeral. There was no evidence, no fingerprints, no recordings, and no concrete leads. Each potential clue dissolved into uncertainty, leaving the case colder than ever. Adding to the confusion were items found in unexpected places. A valet worker discovered a small shoe behind a vending machine in the hotel's parking garage, a single piece of jewelry left on a stairwell landing, and even a luggage tag from one of the women tucked into a maintenance closet. Each item sparked hope that the case might finally progress, but forensic analysis often proved inconclusive. There were no fingerprints, no DNA traces, and the origins of these objects remained a riddle, as if someone, or something, was deliberately leaving cryptic breadcrumbs. By the end of the first month, the investigation had become a maze of dead ends and fleeting glimpses. Detectives had chased every lead, interviewed dozens of witnesses, and combed the hotel from basement to penthouse, yet the women remained missing. The strange events, mysterious sightings, and inexplicable items painted a picture that was almost supernatural in its complexity. For law enforcement, the line between reality and speculation blurred, and the sense of frustration and dread grew. The more they looked, the less they seemed to understand, and the shadows of unanswered questions began to loom even larger. As the investigation dragged on, detectives began to dig deeper into the history of the hotel itself. What they discovered sent shivers down their spines. The building, once a glamorous jewel of the Las Vegas Strip, had a history far darker than its glittering facade suggested. Decades before the disappearance of Jessica, Maria, and Lauren, the hotel had been the center of whispered rumors, strange disappearances, unexplained accidents, and tales of people entering rooms and never leaving. For some, it was a place of entertainment. For others, a place of nightmares waiting to happen. Former employees came forward with chilling anecdotes. Housekeepers spoke of hidden doors behind tapestries, secret stairwells that led nowhere, and storage rooms that seemed to shift locations depending on who entered. Some recounted eerie encounters with past guests who appeared anxious, pale, and unwilling to discuss what they had seen. Rumors circulated of old smuggling tunnels, gambling dens operating in secrecy, and private rooms that were never registered. To investigators, the building itself seemed alive with secrets, and the question of whether the hotel had played a role in the women's disappearance grew increasingly impossible to ignore. The darker side of the hotel's past wasn't just anecdotal. Police records from decades prior revealed strange reports of missing visitors whose cases were quietly closed with no explanation. Some involved wealthy gamblers who vanished after high-stakes poker games. Others were tourists who disappeared after late-night excursions within the hotel. Although no direct connection could be established with the flight attendant's disappearance at the time, the parallels were impossible to ignore. Patterns emerged, suggesting that the hotel had been the backdrop to unexplained tragedies long before 1996. Local historians and longtime Las Vegas residents contributed pieces to the puzzle. They recalled stories of secret societies that once used the hotel as a meeting place, the construction of hidden rooms and passageways during the 1970s, and renovations that were never documented in official blueprints. Some passages were rumored to have been sealed off, their entrances hidden behind walls, mirrors, or wardrobes. These concealed areas were said to be so intricate that even employees occasionally became disoriented inside them. The very architecture of the hotel seemed designed to hide things people were never meant to find. The more investigators learned, the more the hotel itself seemed like a character in the mystery. Every brick, hallway, and floorboard carried echoes of the past. The idea that Jessica, Maria, and Lauren might have stumbled onto a secret that had remained hidden for decades became increasingly plausible. Could their disappearance have been the result of curiosity, or had they accidentally crossed paths with something, or someone, dangerous lurking within the hotel's shadowy corridors? The answers remained elusive, but one thing was clear. The building was more than a backdrop, it was an enigma in its own right. Nearly 3 decades after the disappearance, the hotel began a major renovation to modernize its aging facilities. As workers tore down old walls and patched up decades-old wiring, one team stumbled upon something completely unexpected, a wall that didn't match the blueprints. Unlike the surrounding architecture, it was thick, unmarked, and seemed almost deliberately concealed. At first, the construction crew assumed it was a mistake, perhaps a leftover partition from an earlier renovation. But curiosity, and a creeping sense of unease, pushed them to investigate further. With careful chiseling and sledgehammers, the workers eventually broke through the wall. What they found inside shocked everyone. The space beyond was a sealed room, untouched for decades, filled with dust, cobwebs, and the unmistakable signs of human presence. There were personal belongings, shoes, handbags, and even luggage tags, clearly belonging to Jessica, Maria, and Lauren. The room had clearly been hidden deliberately, as if someone had wanted to ensure the world never discovered what lay within. Every item told a story of interrupted lives and unanswered questions. The discovery sent ripples of fear and fascination through both the hotel staff and law enforcement. Forensic teams were immediately called in, carefully documenting every inch of the space. It became clear that this room had been untouched since the night the 3 women disappeared. The walls, floor, and even the corners bore subtle signs of habitation, improvised bedding, faint scratches, and remnants of clothing. It was as if the women had been trapped there, confined to a space no one was supposed to enter. Even more chilling were the cryptic details hidden within the room. Notes were scrawled on the walls in hasty handwriting, seemingly desperate messages left by someone, or all 3 women. The content was fragmented, incomplete, and full of fear, hinting at struggles that investigators could only begin to imagine. Every object, every mark, and every scrap of paper seemed like a puzzle piece in a story that had been silenced for 28 years. The very existence of the room transformed the disappearance from a mysterious vanishing into something far darker. The revelation of the hidden room reopened the case with intense scrutiny. Media outlets descended on the hotel, and the story of the vanished flight attendants dominated headlines once more. Questions swirled. Who had hidden the room? Why had no one discovered it before now? And most importantly, what had actually happened to Jessica, Maria, and Lauren during those long, agonizing years? For the investigators, the hidden wall was both a breakthrough and a new nightmare, offering a tangible glimpse into the truth while raising even more haunting questions. Once the hidden room was fully exposed, forensic teams began a meticulous examination of its contents. The air inside was thick with decades of dust, yet the evidence of human occupation was unmistakable. Investigators found makeshift bedding arranged along the walls, tattered blankets, pillowcases, and clothing that suggested the women had tried to make the space as livable as possible under the circumstances. Every corner of the room hinted at desperation and fear, painting a chilling picture of confinement that no one had anticipated. The walls themselves told a haunting story. Scratches, symbols, and hastily written messages covered the plaster, some nearly indecipherable from age. Forensic analysts deduced that at least some of these markings were from the women themselves, cryptic pleas, desperate attempts to document their existence, and warnings that they were trapped. Every note was fragmented, revealing glimpses of fear, confusion, and frustration. The handwriting suggested moments of panic, moments of hope, and moments of absolute despair. It was a voice frozen in time, echoing across nearly 3 decades. Personal items added a further layer of horror. Jewelry boxes were pried open, handbags contained worn-out shoes and forgotten toiletries, and a few luggage tags bore airline stamps from the day they had vanished. Each artifact confirmed the women had been present, and had likely been there for an extended period. Forensic teams searched for fingerprints, DNA, and other physical evidence, but the passage of time had eroded much of it. Still, the mere presence of these belongings was undeniable proof. The women had been somewhere, kept against their will, in this hidden space. There were also signs that someone, or something, had deliberately maintained the concealment of the room. Dust patterns suggested the space had been sealed shortly after the women's disappearance. The floorboards were undisturbed, and no tool marks indicated that anyone had accessed it since. It was as if the room had been deliberately crafted to hold them in isolation, hidden from the world entirely. Investigators were left grappling with an unsettling possibility. The disappearance was not random, but intentional, orchestrated by someone with knowledge of the hotel's hidden architecture. The psychological weight of the room's contents was overwhelming. For detectives, each item, each note, and each mark on the walls raised more questions than answers. Who had imprisoned the women? For what purpose? And most importantly, how could no one have discovered this room for nearly 30 years? The evidence was concrete, horrifying, and impossible to ignore, but it did not reveal the full story. Instead, it deepened the mystery, leaving investigators, family, and the public in a state of disbelief and terror. The revelation of the hidden room sent shockwaves through Las Vegas, the media, and the families of Jessica, Maria, and Lauren. Authorities reopened the case immediately, combing through decades of cold leads with renewed intensity. Yet even with modern forensic techniques and the physical evidence found in the room, the case remained baffling. There was no sign of the perpetrator, no fingerprints beyond what could be attributed to the women, and no clue as to how or why the room had been created. It was as if the hotel itself had swallowed the truth and refused to give it up. Detectives pursued every possible angle. They interviewed former employees, contractors, and anyone who had access to the hotel over the past 28 years. Experts in architecture and hidden spaces were called in to map the building's secret passageways. Some suggested the room might have been used as a hideout for illicit activity, while others theorized it could have been a remnant of organized crime operations from decades earlier. Each theory was compelling, yet each fell short of explaining the disappearance of 3 young women so precisely and cruelly. Public fascination reached fever pitch. True crime podcasts, television shows, and online forums dissected every detail, from the construction of the wall to the placement of personal items inside. Amateur sleuths and conspiracy theorists proposed hundreds of scenarios, some chilling, others outright bizarre. Yet no one could definitively solve the puzzle. Despite 28 years passing, the story remained alive in the public imagination, a haunting reminder that some mysteries defy explanation no matter how much time elapses. The hotel, now infamous for its dark history, refused to comment extensively on the discovery. Some staff members described an uneasy atmosphere, reporting flickering lights, unexplained sounds, and feelings of being watched. Guests whispered of haunted floors and shadowy figures near the area of the hidden room. Whether these were coincidences or manifestations of lingering fear, the aura of the hotel had undeniably changed. Visitors could no longer enjoy the Strip's glamour without a tinge of the building's sinister reputation coloring their experience. For families, friends, and the wider public, the unanswered questions continue to haunt every aspect of the case. Who was responsible for imprisoning the flight attendants? Were they alive for any portion of those years, or had they perished soon after the disappearance? Could justice ever be served? With each passing year, the mystery grows more profound, more unsettling. Even as the city of Las Vegas thrives around the Strip's bright lights and bustling energy, the shadow of the vanished flight attendants lingers, a story without resolution, an enigma that refuses to fade. As the lights of the Las Vegas Strip continue to shine, the story of Jessica, Maria, and Lauren reminds us that even in a city of endless excitement and glitter, darkness can hide in plain sight. Their disappearance, the hidden room, and the unanswered questions serve as a haunting reminder that some mysteries never truly end. And so, the hotel stands as it always has, grand, vibrant, and full of life. But behind one unassuming wall, the secrets of the past remain locked away. For every visitor who walks its halls, there is the unsettling thought: what if the shadows we don't see are watching us, just as they watched them? The case may be unsolved, the truth buried, and justice still out of reach. Yet the story of the 3 flight attendants who vanished without a trace endures, echoing through time, whispering to anyone who dares to remember. Maybe one day the mystery will be solved, or maybe it is meant to remain one of the darkest secrets of Las Vegas. Either way, it leaves us with a chilling truth. Some disappearances are never meant to be explained, and some walls are never meant to be opened.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.